items are approved. Item 2.0, recognition of students who earned perfect scores on this SC Ready and end-of-course exams by Mackenzie Taylor, Director of Public Information and Community Relations.
Good evening, Madam Chair and fellow Board of Trustees members. It is indeed a joy and a privilege of mine tonight to introduce to you our students who earned perfect scores on SC Ready testing or their end-of-course testing during the last school year. This is, as you well know, a tremendous accomplishment, and we are so proud of them for their academic dedication and the excellence that they have displayed. And to show our appreciation to them, we are presenting to them this evening a special yard sign that they can put out in front of their house so that everyone who drives down the road in front of their house can know all about the great things that they are accomplishing. So we are super excited for them this evening. And I'm going to call them up in alphabetical order, starting with our end-of-course perfect scores from Batesburg-Leesville High School. And students, once you receive your signs, if you could just kind of gather up here at the front, we're going to grab a quick picture at the end. Devin Adams, a perfect end-of-course score in English 2. We have Aiden Alexander, another perfect score in U.S. History. Mr. McGinty's going to help me here. DeCondria Dennis, English 2. Not sure everyone couldn't join us this evening. Connor Getson, U.S. History. Andrew Hall in U.S. History. Josie Hand, English 2. Okay. DeCondria did come in, so we are going to give her sign now. Welcome. Glad you could be here. All right, did I get Noah Harmon, English 2? I lost track of where I was. Okay, perfect, good. We'll come right back to him. All right, Wyatt Hendricks in English 2. All right, Noah Harmon, English 2. Evan Kirkland, Algebra 1. Cameron Kirkland, Algebra 1. Cade Long in Biology. Ike Moore in Algebra 1. Kylie Price in English 2. Riley Robertson in Biology. Andrew Taylor in U.S. History. Emily Tucker in U.S. History. And Callie Watson in English 2 and Biology. So congratulations, students. We are so proud of you for your tremendous accomplishments. And we're going to move on now to our perfect SC Ready test scores. We have Miss Nora Barr from Batesburg-Leesville Elementary School. Nora received a perfect score on the math portion. So congratulations, Nora. We also have Miss Lexi Davis from Batesburg-Leesville Middle School who received a perfect score on her math portion of the SC Ready, but she couldn't be with us this evening. So we'll be sure to get all of the students who were unable to be here tonight their yard signs so that we can celebrate with them as well. Let's give one more round of applause.
That's amazing.
All right, guys, everyone just look here. 1, 2, 3. All right, congratulations.
That was impressive.
I know it.
She is cute as a button. She's adorable.
That's right.
Cleared out fast.
All right, Mackenzie, we will let you also introduce item 2.2, South Carolina School Board's 2023 Boardmanship Institute Training Certificates of Achievement presented to Francis Balknight, Ty Balknight, Sonia Carey, and Dr. Gary Ann Gunner.
Yes, Madam Chair, it's also my honor to present many of you this evening with some well-deserved recognitions pertaining to the Boardmanship Institute with the South Carolina School Boards Association. Board member and leadership training is a top priority for the SCSBA. Its Boardmanship Institute offers year-round training curriculum focused on leadership skills for board members on state and national educational issues. And tonight we are pleased to recognize those of you who received and reached a new level during the 2022-2023 fiscal year. I have placed your certificates and your pins at your tables, and we'll grab a quick picture after tonight's meeting. But congratulations to Dr. Ashley Atkinson, who reached level 2, Ty Balknight, who reached level 2, Dr. Gary Ann Gunner, who reached level 3, Ms. Sonia Carey, who reached level 4, and Ms. Frances Balknight, who reached level 5. So let's give all of you a round of applause. Thank you guys for your continued service to our school district and our Panther students.
Yes, thank you all for taking your position seriously and always looking to increase your education. Thank you. We will now move on to item 3.1, the financial report. Ms. Angela Roden.
Good evening. You all received your cash analysis and revenue and expenditure statement in your packets for the month of August. Notes to mention on the cash analysis, we received around $2 million in federal funds. We expend those and claim those back. And to point out also, we received our insurance proceeds from the flooding, the June flood at the Fine Arts Center. So those were another large cash receipts for the month of August. Do you have any specific questions about the revenue and expenditure statements for August?
Thank you, Ms. Roden.
Thank you.
Item 3.2, Superintendent's Report with Dr. Ashley Atkinson.
Thank you. On September the 6th, we had our first district-wide training in quite some time. I guess you'd have to go back before COVID, since we've been able to bring all of our staff together in one location. So we had our district-wide safety training in the Fine Arts Center. I think our staff thoroughly enjoyed the time together, being able to provide them with lunch. And I know that the presentation from John Michael Keyes from the I Love You Guys Foundation was, its parts were difficult to listen to, but it was time spent worthwhile. And I think the point of how important school safety is and that we have to be vigilant in making sure that we keep our students and staff safe, I think that point really hit home. And I'd just like to thank Todd Beatonbow, who coordinated the event and lunch, and Robbie Leapard and our whole maintenance staff that prepared the Fine Arts Center since the flood that we had this summer. So again, it was a time worthwhile. As you all know, we have really two outstanding mental health counselors in Jill Longshore and Ivy Hatfield. Recently, they completed some training through the South Carolina Behavioral Health Academy, where they go in and just again can focus on safe schools, responding to crises, providing science-based approaches to counseling and whole school approaches to preventing mental health and behavioral problems. So right now, there are only 10 schools that have mental health counselors that have gone through this training. So we're in the top 10 right now in this category for our mental health training and our services that we are providing. One of the things that we received in recognition of their participation was a $2,000 stipend for them to further provide services for our students. Once again, we received a fresh fruit and vegetable grant. This year, we received $50,550 that would be split between the primary and elementary school. And this, again, allows our students to try and taste different produce and vegetables that they may have not had the opportunity to do so before, and also allows students to have a variety of healthy snacks throughout the school day. Tomorrow marks our selection process for the 2023-24 Teacher of the Year for our district. So our judges will be going around to the schools and visiting classrooms and interviewing our current Teachers of the Year. And again, I just want to say how proud we are of all of our school-wide Teachers of the Year. At the primary school, it's Grayson Livingston. At the elementary school, Shaniqua Mays. At the middle school, Jennifer Conley. And the high school, Alex Richardson. And I would also just like to recognize and thank Jacob Pross, who was our last year's Teacher of the Year, for the outstanding and professional way that he has represented our district throughout the state. I know a lot of you were able to participate on August the 28th when we had the ribbon cutting at the special ed program at the middle school. I know that those of you who were there, it was quite an awe-inspiring event to be able to watch Ms. Conley and her students cut the ribbon and then go out onto the playground to be able to enjoy those activities. Again, it was quite a scene. I just want to thank Angie Michaud, who started the process to get this done. You know, David Snyder, Robbie Lee Part, and our entire maintenance staff that made this happen for these students. On August the 24th, the primary school held their first parent university. It was a huge success. It covered everything parents needed to know but were afraid to ask about school. So we had quite great participation there, and I think it was especially helpful for those younger parents who have children in the primary school or in school for the first time to be able to put a name with a face where they can get support and just lots of things that are helpful. Again, I want to thank Marianne Tillman, Michelle Maroney, and Jennifer Richardson, and our entire primary school staff for making this event happen. It's that time of year again when we start trying to reach out to supply and stock our backpack program. That support drive is underway. The primary school is searching for food, monitoring donations, as well as anyone willing to pack a backpack. Merritt Bishop, who is our school social worker, does an excellent job of getting those children that maybe have some extra needs to be able to support those students and those families. Last year, the backpack program served 96 children at the primary school throughout the entire year, making sure that they had food to take home on the weekends. We have two teachers at the middle school, Rhonda Rose and Tristan Paget, who are participating in something new. It's called the Clemson Teacher Learning Progression Grant. It's sponsored by the U.S. Department of Education through Clemson University, and it allows them to expand some of their training in different areas, such as creating engaging math classrooms, computer science fundamentals, or STEAM. This is a $3 million grant that allows teachers to pursue what's called a micro-credential. So it's not a full degree, but it's able to pinpoint or to get some expertise in one specific area that they're interested in. But what I want to point out is that when the program coordinators and professors from Clemson came to visit, these are the things they had to say about the middle school. They praised about the hospitality, the culture that they observed, the student engagement in learning, the cleanliness of the building, which is very important, and the overall learning environment. They were just taken back by the atmosphere at the middle school, and just had high praise for the staff and the students there. And that's all for this month.
All right, good. Thank you so much. All right, we will move on to item 4.0, public participation. Jennifer, any cards? No cards, thank you. Then we will jump right on to the information items. Item 5.1 is our school board member continuing education, debriefing the 2023 SCSBA School Law Conference. And schools have to constantly respond to new and changing legal requirements and procedures. And this yearly conference brings board members, district administrators, and attorneys together to present valuable, up-to-date information on legal and regulatory issues that impact our public schools. And at this time, I'm going to invite some of our attendees to maybe mention the highlights, what stuck out with them, and what they thought.
All right. I'll go first.
Okay.
The School Law Conference was a great event with attorneys as speakers. Hot topics in educational law included special education, religion, Title IX, and the First Amendment. Court rulings were discussed, and we had key takeaways provided as well. One of the sessions that I attended was Policy in Practice. Some of the topics discussed were the difference between policy and administrative rules, the need for policies, policy development and the board's role, adoption of policies, enforce, evaluate, revise, characteristics of effective policies, the policy process and best practices. Information received during this conference will help us as we continue to do the best for our district.
Thank you, Frances. Ms. Carey?
As I read over my packet from the conference, and Jennifer was so nice to print the handouts for me. This is a portion of the handouts that we got. This is not all of that we use, not all of them. But I just was amazed at how relevant everything we heard in this conference was. Because sometimes you go to conferences and you say, I don't need to worry about that. But that's not the case with this conference. Just to give you an idea, I'll read you some of the titles of the workshops that we went to, and tell you the two that I thought really struck my attention the most. One was like Frances said, a lot of it was listening to lawyers on the federal grounds of what cases are going to come down and affect us. We heard about that. We heard a lot on IDEA, which is your special ed law, and it is nowhere near fully funded, and that is a push that's been going on for years to try to get this funded. Robert's Rules of Order, which I'm not sure anybody can ever master Robert's Rules of Order, but we did get a workshop on that, except David Botnight. He's mastered Robert's Rules of Order. What we need to know about litigation, board member liability, student discipline hearings, what a board member's roles are, exactly what our options are when we participate in a school discipline hearing, board policies and practice. And then this next one was one that really got my attention, and it is the parental rights movement and what school board members need to know. And I think the most important takeaway from that was both sides actually have very firm legal ground for what they believe. I'm not sure where the middle ground's going to be here, but they do both feel like they have a very strong case. Superintendent contract negotiations and what questions you need to ask and learn about for school law. And most importantly, Debbie Elmore from School Boards Association gave us an update from the State House this year and new policies that we will have to implement because of the laws that were passed. And I think there were either 12 or 14 laws passed in this session that affect education. It was a full conference.
Thank you, Ms. Carey. And I want to expand on one of the sessions that I went to. It was school board liability. And when we are elected board members, we have to take that one class that you take one time at the beginning and that's it. So often we seem to forget what our duties are and what our responsibilities can be as board members. So We needed to be reminded that our duties are to hire the superintendent and to set policy that includes attending board meetings, following the laws, overseeing finances and budget, and continue our education. They also stressed that we are decision makers as a group, and our duties include decision-making, but they necessarily do not include decisions that are necessary to operate the school district. They were also reminding us that we are liable and we can be sued as a district and as an individual. We were reminded we needed to refrain from intervening in employee and student matters until the matter is properly settled or properly comes before the board. We were reminded you do not need to get involved in that before it comes to you. Also, when procurement, we had to refrain from engaging in conduct that restricts competition. And then we also went into the First Amendment rights with freedom of speech, social media, anything that we say in public. And we hold a standard for our faculty and staff. So we as board members need to also remember the professionalism. And sometimes you just have to sit back and smile and refrain from using information to harm a specific someone, as well as the negative support of the district. We were also reminded that when we took our oath of office, we removed any personal agendas that we may have had, and we changed from private citizens to a school board member, and we are held accountable to our public. Charles Boykin, who is a senior partner at Boykin and Davis, gave an excellent presentation, but his closing comment was to remind us that we are seen as the authority on matters related to our district, but that authority does not make us an expert. We need to always be aware. We need to ask questions and clarify. So anyway, y'all probably got bored, but I know that everybody didn't get to that breakout session, and I said, that's just probably a little reminder we could all use. So thank you for listening to me go through that. At this time, we move on to item 5.2, assessment and accountability update with Jeff Potts.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board, Dr. Atkinson. Tonight I'm planning to share with you information regarding our MAP data from the 2022-23 school year. So similar to last year, I plan to share some information, some visuals that help display the performance of students and how they compare to other students across the nation in terms of growth and achievement. Using quintiles, like I did last year, I will present how the distribution of scores at each level and grade level and subject compared to that of NWEA's national norm. But before we look at our data, I just want to share some examples of to help us interpret student achievement. So last year, I helped display some information by quintiles that help us to understand the distribution of scores across a grade level and subject. So the first example that I share is what is average achievement. So the more a distribution of scores looks like this, the more that the distribution resembles that of the national norm. The second example helps to display what would be lower than average achievement. Notice the students are more clustered in the first and second quintiles, that is the red and the orange boxes. The lower the achievement is, the more students you have in the first and second quintiles, the more likely it is that students are scoring below average in achievement. And conversely, we have higher than average achievement. The more a group of students are weighted within the fourth and fifth quintiles, the higher the achievement is in comparison to that of the national norm. So using this context, we can also talk about the information the same way in terms of growth. We can help look at the distribution of scores in between two administrations of the MAP assessment to help us understand what growth looks like. So for example, imagine we have this as the distributions of our students in the fall and in the spring. Notice that there isn't a change between the two administrations. Now, that doesn't mean that there isn't growth. It actually means that there is likely growth of an entire grade level in between the fall and the spring. So it actually depicts that as a whole, students grew the expected amount. Using the same students in the fall, we can look at a different situation that depicts lower than average growth. Notice from the fall to the spring, we have a higher level of students scoring in the first and second quintiles. This is an example that helps to display lower than average growth. And also at the same time, we can look at higher than average growth, looking at the same fall distribution of scores. So having more students in the fourth and fifth quintiles and less in the first and second quintiles helps to display what could depict higher than average growth. Now, these are just a couple of examples of what growth could look like from one administration to the next. So one thing that I plan to do is I'm going to start by looking at the math scores at Batesburg-Leesville Primary School. Hopefully some of the examples give us some context for what growth will look like. Now, when I look at this, one of the things that pops off the page at me right away is the percentage of students that are scoring at the highest levels in kindergarten. Also, I'm noticing that across the grade levels, it appears that we have evidence of student growth in kindergarten, first and second grade. So one of the things to mention is that students in kindergarten and first grade, when they take the MAP exam, the math growth exam, they do not read questions on the assessment. They're using their oral listening skills to help answer questions. But at the same time, it appears that students in kindergarten and first grade as well have more than enough capacity to be able to move on to some of the additional questions that they have in second grade. When students get to third, fourth, and fifth grade, we start to see that, especially in third grade, there is strong evidence for growth. But we also see that as students are moving from third, fourth to fifth grade, we see that students are performing more like average achievement. Their average achievement looks more like what we would expect students to score. Now, when students get to middle school, we're seeing evidence of growth really across all of the grade levels. And in addition, we're seeing student achievement that looks more like average achievement at each of the grade levels. Now, moving on to reading, we see that high growth and achievement in kindergarten is evidence, and we still see some strong support for growth even in first and second grade. But we do have this high discrepancy of students between kindergarten and second grade that are scoring in the lowest quintile. By the time students get to elementary school, we're starting to see more normalized achievement, and we see evidence for growth really across all the grade levels from third, fourth to fifth grade in terms of yearly growth. We see something similar at the middle school. We see achievement that looks more like what we would expect, and we're seeing yearly growth across really all of the grade levels. Now, I do say that this is just one way that we can look at growth and achievement. There are other ways that we can. And one of the things that I really wanted to try to do for you tonight was to really dig into the information and see if I could find something that helped to show a little more evidence of growth. And so one of the grade levels that's really kind of been on my heart for the last couple of years is the current sixth grade, partly because I have a daughter in it, but also because this is a grade level that happened to go out in the middle of the pandemic in second grade in the second semester. And almost 2/3 of the students that were in that grade level were virtual learners. So many of those students didn't actually get to be in a classroom for almost a year and a half. And so I wanted to just look at what did those students look like when they came back in third grade in reading, and what did they look like at the end of last year. And so they are a 2030 graduation cohort. And when they came back, more than 40% of the kids were in the bottom quintile. And so the distribution now looks a little more normal. And I should say that these are students who were here in both administrations. So the 5th grade score that you see on a couple pages earlier looks a little different, and that's because these are exact cohort of kids from the start of 3rd grade to the end of 5th grade. But what I really remember the first time I ran the scores in the fall of 2020 was feeling like we had a really long way to go. That it in some ways, I remember sitting in a meeting with Angie Michaud at the elementary school and feeling like this seems insurmountable. And it's going to take a whole lot of intervention. It's going to take a whole lot of moving students around during the daytime. It's going to take a lot of really rearranging our schedules and thinking about how to use our time most effectively to help students read and help students learn how to do math and other skills. So this is really, when I look at this, I think this is really a testament for our teachers who have worked really hard for the last couple of years, and for our administrators who've really put in the time and effort to make something like this happen. I know we have some more information that we're going to be sharing within the next couple of weeks and months, and so this just feel like this is kind of just an intro to what we're going to start looking at over the fall. Anybody have any questions on the information that I'm sharing with you tonight?
I do have, I think, two. When do we test maps? What's the testing window? We do fall and spring?
We do a fall, winter, and a spring assessment. And so typically, I would say at the start of the school year, students are testing within the first 3 weeks of the school year. The winter window is typically right before our winter break. And kind of depending upon when spring break falls and how much time we have for SE Ready testing. Sometimes it's right before spring break. I do think that we've had it afterwards, just depending upon when spring break falls.
Okay, all right. And then to go back on the 2nd grade scores, there was just, I looked at it and I thought, well, that's, I didn't know what, I'll have to get back to my right page. In the, I think this was it. Hold on 1 second. This is it. And it was the 2nd grade scores for the fall reading. And I was just looking at the 33% in the 1st to 20th quintile, and then in the spring, there was 36%. And and then there's a huge difference between 1st grade and 2nd grade. Any ideas as to why we're seeing such a huge difference?
So I think some of the things that could impact, and I think 2nd grade is really the last grade level that we had that was really impacted by, 2nd grade last year was one of the last COVID impacted grades. They would have been in preschool that year. And our preschool numbers were close to half of what they typically are. And so as a district like ours, we've put, if you look at some of the kindergarten scores that we have right now, I think that's a real good depiction of how strong our pre-K program is and how widely used it is within our district. And so I don't know for a fact that that is it. That's my gut feeling.
Probably. I can understand that.
Yeah.
When those kids came back after COVID, particularly in the low grades, the ones that were coming into kindergarten then, they came in with so few skills. So many of them did. It's probably true.
And also our teachers talked about, those younger children as they came in after COVID, just trying to get social skills and get them into routines and things was quite the challenge.
That was when I was teaching in another district, and that's what I was doing, was remediation for kindergarten children. and most of them had sat their 4K year out at home. I was just amazed at what they did not know when they came back in. It was unreal.
Overall, how would you say our students compared to the previous year?
I went and actually looked at the two reports kind of side by side because I wanted to get a depiction of what this looked like. And when I started tracking cohorts, like first to second grade, I really felt like overall our students are performing in achievement better this year than they were last year than the prior year. I think the growth that we saw last year from the year before when I last presented a similar presentation, I think the amount of growth that we're seeing within cohorts has scaled down a little bit, but I feel like the cohorts themselves are all growing across ELA and math. And so that made me feel good. So that was one of the reasons why I wanted to dig into one cohort to show you what that would look like.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, Jeff, for good news. Sometimes it's always good to hear good news. Thank you. All right, we will move on to item 6.0, our action items, and 6.1 is approval for GT students to attend a field trip to Cape Kennedy on March the 11th through the 13th, 2024 in Florida. And we have Ms. Clark, Ms. Norton, and Matt Velasquez, who will be giving us this presentation.
Good evening, School Board, Dr. Agason. We're coming forward tonight to ask you to approve a wonderful opportunity for our GT students in grades 3 through 8. We seek approval for an out-of-state overnight field trip, and yes, we are a little scared too, to the Kennedy Space Center in the Orlando, Florida area. Students will have the opportunity to spend the night underneath the space shuttle on the first night, and the Florida Department of Education actually will put on some activities and learning opportunities for them. Our chaperones are aware of this as they're giving their interest letters back that they'll be sleeping under the shuttle. As a bonus, the students will have the opportunity to spend a few hours at SeaWorld before they come home. We're partnering with Kelly Tours, who actually our third grade used last year, and our parents and our teachers had rave reviews about their professionalism. So we're looking forward to working with them again. It's a little pricey. It is $600 per person, but we have talked amongst ourselves, and we're going to try to make sure that every child can go, whether it be through scholarships or fundraising opportunities. The chaperone student ratio is required by them to be 1 to 5. We're going to try to get 1 to 4. Security guards will be placed on the hallways of the hotel provided by Kelly Tours. So, Mackenzie, that may ease your nerves a little bit more from our conversation earlier. Are there any questions that we can answer for you?
Did you say how many kids were going?
We don't know the exact number. Obviously, we wanted to get approval from you guys first. We did send out a letter of interest. I have about 37. Shari, you've got about 48. Is that correct? And we had nearly 100% that asked to go. We have to have a number close to 90 for them to give us the private tour in the evening and to kind of shut the Space Center down for us. So our kids will be the only school there.
All right, any more questions?
Madam Chair, I make a motion that we give approval for GT students to attend the field trip to Cape Kennedy on March the 11th through 13th, 2024 in Florida as presented.
I have a motion by Mr. Kaufman for approval for the GT students to attend a field trip to Cape Kennedy on March the 11th through the 13th, 2024 in Florida. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Baltnight. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank y'all so much.
Thank you.
Sounds like a great trip.
I know. Okay, item 6.2, second reading approval of policy GCQE, GCQC, professional support personnel retirement. And do you want to go ahead and do 6.2 and 6.3 together?
I would love to. if you'll
Okay,
let me.
and then second reading approval of policy GDCC, paid parental leave.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Board of Trustees, Dr. Atkinson. I am bringing for second reading these two policies that you approved first reading last month. The first policy, GCQE/GDQC, there have been no changes or adjustments to that one since August. And the second policy, GCC, paid parental leave, there's no changes to that one since August except for the correction in the addendum that was noted at last month's board meeting.
All right, we have these as presented. Any questions?
Madam Chair, I make a motion that we give second reading approval of policy GCQE, GDQC, professional support, personnel retirement, and also second reading approval of policy GDCC, paid parental leave, as presented by the administration.
All right, we have a motion from Ms. Baltnight to give second reading approval of policy GCQE/GDQC, professional support, personnel retirement, and second reading approval of policy GDCC, paid parental leave, as presented by the administration. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Carey. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Okay, item 6.4 is selection of voting delegate and alternate for the South Carolina School Boards Association Annual Business Meeting held on December the 2nd and the 3rd, 2023, during the South Carolina School Boards Association Legislative Advocacy Conference in Charleston. So, as you all know, we have one vote during this delegate assembly where we vote on future officers, policies, resolutions, what we want the School Boards Association to work on as far as presenting with the legislature next year. So we will need to nominate and vote on a delegate and an alternate.
Do we have, specifically, like, we don't do it by officers or something like that, we just whoever?
It's just whoever you want. I mean, that's, yeah.
I nominate Ms. Burgess to be our primary voting delegate.
I have a motion from Mr. Kaufman to nominate me, which I guess I've been there for the past 12 years. I can go one more time. So, do you want to go ahead and, did you nominate an alternate, or did I not hear, or?
Is everyone going? I mean,
I'm
Are
going.
you- I plan to go.
I plan to go. We're going.
Ms. Baltnight,
That's right.
All right.
you're going to make me pick?
We have a motion from Mr. Kaufman to nominate, or to name Cheryl Burgess as our voting delegate and Frances Baltnight as our alternate. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Derrick. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion passes unanimously. We are now on to item 7.0, executive session for discussion of personnel and legal and contractual matters.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a recommendation, we move into executive session for a discussion of personnel and legal and contractual matters.
Have a motion from Ms. Carey to go into executive session to discuss personnel and legal and contractual matters. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Derrick. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion passes unanimously. We are now in executive session.